Alright, so I played through the first 4 chapters of Kira's route. And this video is going to be all about talking about Kira's route. And so far, to be completely honest, I'm a little bored. I don't really care for Kira. I mean, I haven't been, like, super into any of these guys. But Kira kind of feels like a discount Yonekura in some ways. And then his unique traits are just ones that I fucking hate. He's a boundary stomper like the other two, but more in the way that Yonekura was a boundary stomper than the way that Makoto was a boundary stomper. He does it, Kira does it for fun, to make you uncomfortable, essentially, and that's why I think they have like the little sadist aspect to him, because he purposely tries to make you embarrassed, and one of the recurring things in the first 2 chapters was he says he wants to make you cry. I will say that the budding romance is a little bit better paced than it was in either of the other 2 routes, although Makoto's wasn't terribly paced given the childhood friend aspect. Yonekura felt kind of like a switch, where this one, we have at least a few signals of a gradual increase in affection. I don't care for Kira because his big thing is he likes obedient girls, and it's just something that rubs me the wrong way. If you like it, that's fine, but it's not for me. I don't really care for it. I don't like it, and he's not the only one to do, like, Yonekura actually went into the bath with the lead. Kira just stands there with, like, an open towel or, like, your robe open, and, like, you have to physically stand up naked and get into and walk, like, to him naked. It's just weird. It's weird. The boundary stomping is just, like, I understand the purpose of it, but it just feels handled very poorly, and I don't care for it. I understand what they were going for. I just think that they missed the mark with it, and I think that all of the guys basically stomping boundaries in the first chapter is not, and I don't think it would be great in any context, but especially in the first chapter with how much Yonekura and Kira cross boundaries with the bath, it's just a bit of an for me. Like, it's not my favorite. I don't particularly care for it. And so far all of the guys will do this thing where they basically sleep in your bed with you. There's varieties of different contexts. I will say that Kira seemed to be like the best handled of the 3, where the other 2 I think were kind of the ones to initiate it before this one. And this time around, the player character is the one to initiate it because she got scared of ghost stories. And for the thing is, though, that was started by Kira, but I didn't feel like a manipulation thing to get to that point for me. It felt like he was kind of being a bit of an asshole and purposely trying to kind of upset her and rattle her. And it could have just been viewed as teasing, really. And she eventually asks him to stay in bed with her. They don't do anything. And then there's this kind of gradual sense of, like, possessiveness, but not in the way that, like, Makoto was possessive. This possessiveness is more similar to, if you've played Cupid Parasite Raoul, like that possessive scene. And so it wasn't as well handled as Raoul's, but it wasn't badly handled. It wasn't bad. And now after that kind of possessive kiss, like, there's this whole kind of now shy thing with Kira, and I'm curious to see if that sticks around for, like, another chapter at least. Because I like the signal of, like, he was crossing these kind of boundaries of dressing her and going into, like, the bath while she's in the bath and stuff, and he purposely did it to make her uncomfortable. But now that he has these kind of feelings and something that he's more aware of, he's a little bit more bashful and conscious of it. And I have to say, I like that aspect of his route probably more than the other 2. Is this reveal of, yeah, he was kind of being an asshole, but now that he actually views her in that way, it was really badly hit. It was still a boundary stomp, it was still a whatever, but it wasn't exploitative the way that it felt when he did it earlier and when Yonekura did it. So there is a little bit of a, okay, this is an interesting way to look at it. I'm not hating his route. I'm not loving it. I'm not hating it. He's just not the kind of guy. None of these guys are the kind of guys that I would be like, oh yeah, because they all just, it's everything really ramped up in a lot of bad ways. Even if you took like the best features of him, Kira wouldn't be someone I would get into. But so far, his route isn't too terrible. Okay, so my biggest takeaway is that for some reason I did not realize Yonekura's first name was Shohei, and Kira's first name was Yosuke. For some reason, that did not dawn on me. And so I've been referring to Makoto by his first name, but I've been referring to the other two by their last names. Oops. Well, Yosuke, for the rest of his route, like, I gotta be honest, it was kind of bland. Like, there was this whole jealousy thing with Shohei kind of putting his nose where it doesn't belong, really. And, like, that was the big kickoff of his feelings. And the one big difference from Yosuke from Makoto or Shohei is that he doesn't have a love confession until chapter 5. Like, they start dating in chapter 3, but, like, they get into a relationship. But he doesn't, like, officially announce his feelings until chapter 5. I mean, it's all fine. I guess the happy ending, of course, that he doesn't get married, but they're in this bridal fashion show together because Yosuke is a model. There's this continual thing where he really likes to see her embarrassed and wants to make her cry from being so embarrassed or whatever. He has like a fetish or something for it. I think it's meant to be like his sadistic side. But ultimately, like, I really don't have a whole lot to say from it. I wasn't really invested in any of their routes, but I had stronger thoughts about their routes. After playing the other two, Yosuke is pretty tame for, like, outrageous behavior. He does do some things wrong, don't get me wrong, I've already mentioned them. And I really hate his, like, you have to obey my every order bullshit. But it doesn't even come across that strongly, and the main character is a pretty submissive girl to begin with, so it doesn't feel like a stretch. And there was no option to be like, fuck you, I'm not your toy or something. There's no option like that. You're just always meant to be timid. So, I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and play the date scenario, the sequel, and go through and get the normal ending. I got the happy ending the first time through. That's my overall feeling with Yosuke is Like, Makoto had some serious issues that kept me from really liking his route. I really did not like the way he behaved. And while it was fixed somewhat at the end, it felt like he also relapsed into bad behavior in the happy end. And it was just... There were just some things with Makoto that... Like, they couldn't decide if they were going to go tsundere or yandere. Shohei has given all of their endings, and granted, I still need to see Yosuke's date scenario and the sequel for Yosuke, but I don't anticipate being wowed by it by any means. And I don't know, I don't feel super strongly about any of the guys, but right now, I'm going to wait to give my final ranking until I finish his date scenario. But right now, he's at, like, bottom for me. Because despite all of Makoto's issues, at least his route was interesting to play through. Yosuke is so bland that I have a hard time being like, are your feelings even genuine? I don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and finish those real quick and then give my final thoughts, not only on Yosuke's route, but on the entire game. Okay, so I finally finished everything for my Butler. And we'll start with Yosuke's normal ending, which ended up being closer to the way the happy endings were for the other two routes, in which it was there was this announcement on TV or some sort of public broadcast, and then he kind of comes in and does a lot of the stereotypical things we saw from like chapter 1 and chapter 2 with her. The sequel was cute. It was a little bit more like domestic, fluffy sort of thing. And the date was also kind of cute. Like, it was... You definitely got more of a feeling that he, like, loved her. And there was a bit of possessiveness and jealousy that wasn't toxic. So that was kind of nice. Ultimately, Yosuke is eh. The sequel and the date scenario were better than Makoto's. So now I kind of have those two on, like, equal footing with Shohei's being my favorite. And I say my favorite loosely because Shohei's was not bland. Yosuke's was fairly bland. Yosuke's whole route was fairly bland. Shohei's wasn't, like, super bland. At least he has more of a personality, and I just felt like his personality wasn't handled super great. Makoto definitely has personality, but it's kind of toxic. Yosuke has probably the least personality out of the three, with this fetish for making her cry. So it's, like, not fantastic options. The game as a whole was pretty short. I didn't necessarily have a problem with the way things were paced. I mean, it went really fast, and I felt like things were moving at a rapid speed. But given the breadth of the game, this was a $5 game. I'm not going to harp on that aspect too much. I'm not going to harp on the setup, although it was an outlandish setup to begin with. Yosuke also taught the female lead etiquette lessons the way Shohei did, but he was less kind about it, I felt. It's kind of... They're all kind of assholes in their own right. Shohei was definitely my favorite of the three. And Makoto was, like... So, like, Shohei and Yosuke were fairly, like, similar-ish in the way things panned out. With the exception of... I don't think Yosuke had a birthday event, which I felt was odd when Makoto and Shohei had a birthday event for the female lead. But Yosuke didn't. Instead, we had this Halloween thing, which, fine. I mean, it was fine. It was cute. It was only Route that had a Halloween event, too. But I just thought it was kind of weird how we just kind of bypassed completely over her birthday. And overall, the game wasn't as bad as I had feared, especially when I was playing Makoto's route. It certainly wasn't fantastic. Quite frankly, even for $5, I can't say I would necessarily recommend it. It's not that it was terrible, but it was... Like, if I hadn't paid for it, like, if I had just done like, I got to do part of a route as a demo, I probably wouldn't have picked the game up. It's... For being rated M, it's fairly tame, which is fine. But the guys that your love interests aren't, like, charismatic or particularly enticing. And that's the big thing for me. The love interests were bland at best, toxic at worst, with everyone being some variation of asshole. And while it fixed a little bit after the love confession and they tried to rein back some of their behavior, it still wasn't enough to save the game, given how short the game was. The normal versus happy endings, there was slight variation. It wasn't significant. The big difference was, like, whether they were more likely to get married or not, and even then, I don't think she got married in two of them. Oh, Yosuke also calls her his possession, but he's more, like, it seems more ingrained in his personality. So, all of this to say, all going around, I can't necessarily say I would recommend this game. It wasn't terrible, but for the roughly 6 hours I spent on my life on this game, it's not something I would recommend. The characters, the love interests aren't great. The game is fairly fast, which is fine. Again, it's fine for the scope of this game. But it's really hard to be engaged in the suspension of disbelief. It's very hard to lose yourself in the game, especially because these guys have so many red flags. And the main character is extremely timid to the point of being frustrating sometimes. If you like yanderes, if you like the kind of trash husbando aesthetic, for lack of a better word, the trash husbando type, this game would probably be worth a look for you, because while they rein it back and they're not like full on horrid, there's definitely some trash behaviors. But the story wasn't spectacular in any of the routes enough for me to say, no, definitely buy this. It's just an game. It's a short game, and none of the love interests are terribly enticing. So, for me, I would not recommend playing this game yourself. There's a couple of Let's Plays of it on YouTube. If you're really that curious, check those out. But I can't recommend spending your money and your time on this game. And that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to take a small break and see which Otome game I play next. Thanks for watching.